Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all-mailbag installment here on AMC Movie Talk, where all we do is take your mailbag questions. My name is John Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and I'm so glad you decided to join us today. And I'm especially happy that we are also joined, of course, by the one and the only Ashley Mova. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Liking the shirt.
Thank you, my Guardians of the Galaxy shirt.
Fabulous.
Just finally watched that dance-off video that's going around Facebook.
That was great.
So funny. Okay, listen, guys, this is how this works. If you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address in the show, you can email some questions into us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Now, on the weekends, on Mailbag, we take a whole bunch of your questions, but also on AMC Movie Talk during the week, we take your questions as well. So send your questions on in, and maybe you'll see your question on this show or Movie Talk, or maybe not at all, but we'll try to get around to them as many as we can. So with all that being said, let's get to it.
Mike Gulick writes, "Hey AMC crew, huge fan and always love your honesty. I was wondering if maybe the Red Skull might make a return in Captain America Civil War. The entire thought of the superheroes being controlled by the government seems like it might be right up his alley. After all, Cap 1 had him trying to control the Tesseract, and then Cap 2 had Hydra trying to control the intelligence community. With superheroes springing up all over the MCU, it seems like the Red Skull and Hydra would want to have them in his pocket."
I have always wanted Red Skull to return.
Mm-hmm.
I have always wanted Red Skull to return. I thought he was a terrific character in the first Captain America movie. The way he ends is that he's kind of sucked off into the vortex. That means he could be dead, means he could be alive. And I think one of the things that Marvel is doing great. Their cinematic universe is wonderful, but I feel like one of the things that could be a little better is, aside from Loki, is having stronger antagonists, having stronger villains, right? And I think a Red Skull would be great for that. Now, we all know that what's the name of Agent Smith again? I keep forgetting his name. Hugo Weaving. He doesn't want to do anymore. He's under contract to do more. So if Marvel makes him come back, he has to. But he's been very public. He doesn't want to do anymore. And that's really unfortunate because I thought he was great in it. But this past week on AMC Movie Talk, we did talk about the story that it's been announced that Daniel Bruhl is signed on to play an unspecified role in Captain America Civil War, right? And we all know he was so good playing Lauda. And he's already starred with Thor. And he's with Chris Hemsworth in that movie. And we kind of dropped the things like, we were speculating what character could Daniel be playing. And I just thought, what about Red Skull? I mean, if you listen to his voice and you look at his face, I think, while unlikely, I think it's possible, maybe possible in the smallest degree of possibility. So you're saying there's a chance. I think there's like a 1 or 2% chance that maybe he's going to be Red Skull. Now, it does seem like there's going to be an awful lot going on in Civil War to bring in major characters again. But honestly, what Mike was saying in his question is a really good thing. This seems like something that Red Skull could be behind. It totally fits. So while I do not actually think this is what's going to happen, I think it's a very interesting possibility, and I would say that there's a chance.
How about, we literally get questions about Red Skull every single day when I'm monitoring the Twitter feed. How about his own origin story? I'd love to see that, like him as a kid and how he became to this man, like this evil man. I would love to see that.
Well, they kind of gave us an origin story in Captain America. I mean, he was a brilliant scientist, and he decided to test his own serum on himself.
But his own film, like his own film.
Yeah, but actually see that now play out in his own film. The only reason I wouldn't be into it is because I'm not big on prequel stuff.
Oh, right.
I'm not big on going backwards. I'm
you don't like those prequels.
No, I do not. I prefer, and hey, X-Men First Class was pretty good. I mean, so there are exceptions, right? Okay. But I just prefer stories moving forward. I want to see I'd rather see Red Skull come back and see what he does next, as opposed to going back. It's like, yeah, we know where he ends up. I'm not that excited about. Plus, Marvel, the film side of Marvel has not shown any interest in doing prequel movies at this point. So, I mean, I wouldn't be, but I think there would be a lot of people that would be with you on that would be interested in it. I'm just not one of them.
Okay.
All right, what's next?
Jacob Choi writes, "Dear AMC crew, hello AMC crew. I recently watched The Dark Knight and I realized that the great performance of Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face, especially the ending scene when he talks about fairness and how chance is the only thing. My question is, why doesn't Aaron Eckhart get as much attention as Heath Ledger as the Joker? I think both performances were marvelous. Thanks."
Okay, no doubt both performances were marvelous.
Yeah. Amazing.
And I thought Aaron Eckhart was very good
Yeah.
in that and highly underrated.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just look at the flashy part. Like they look at Aaron Eckhart in that movie and they just think, oh, they want to talk about when he becomes Two-Face and he's all mad. I think his performance as Harvey Dent itself was wonderful. He was really great. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The Heath Ledger performance as the Joker was on another level. And while I think Aaron Eckhart was underappreciated and he was magnificent, I don't think he was as good. I wouldn't use the language like as good as Heath Ledger as the Joker. I think Heath Ledger was on another level with that. Trust me, I have been asking the question for years. Why is Aaron Eckhart not a bigger star? I've been asking that for years, before The Dark Knight. Like if you've seen like a movie like Thank You for Smoking, right? I just can't help but wonder, why is this guy not bigger? And then you'd think that having done The Dark Knight, that would open up a lot more doors. Yeah. And he did battle Los Angeles. Like, okay. He did Frankenstein, and he did one like a cooking romantic comedy, with Michael Douglas's ex-wife. I can't remember Michael Douglas's ex-wife's name for whatever reason. Yeah, the one he did with Catherine Zeta-Jones. So he did like a cooking film with her, and I can't remember what that was. He was in Rabbit Hole. He played Nicole Kidman's husband in Rabbit Hole, and he was pretty good in that. But he's never he had a role in Rum Diaries too with Johnny Depp, but that was a bomb. He's just never been able to become that breakthrough A-list actor that a guy of his talent deserves. Now, whether that's because he's made some really bad career choices and been in some horrible movies, Battle Los Angeles should have been great and it was terrible, or whether it's because people just have not connected with him. I don't know, but this is a guy who has all the talent in the world, should be an A-lister, and I just don't know why he's not.
What if something like The Dark Knight isn't going to make you an A-list actor? What the hell could make you an A-list actor?
I don't know. Maybe something like Birdman. I mean, we're talking a lot about Birdman, but look what it's doing for Michael Keaton right now. Everybody now is talking about Michael Keaton as being the man, and they should have been talking about him as the man for a long time, but they didn't. And now Birdman comes out, not a huge blockbuster, but it is one of the best films of the year, and boom, everybody's talking about him. Maybe Aaron Eckhart needs a movie like that. Maybe he needs a smaller indie film that just get tons of Oscar attention, is that type of quality, but it just hasn't happened yet. Okay. Has not happened, and it really should.
Aw, poor guy.
Poor guy.
It'll happen for him.
What's next?
Kenny Britton writes, "Hey guys, love the show. I just rewatched Starship Troopers again the other night, and I can't believe how good this film holds up after all these years. Since the film isn't regarded as anything great, and a number of folk don't seem to like it, I feel I have to rank it as a guilty pleasure, even though I rated it a good 8 out of 10. This had me thinking, does a film have to be considered bad by the majority, yet favored by you to be considered a guilty pleasure? Or is a guilty pleasure a film that you know deep in your heart is bad, but you love anyway? Thanks and keep up the great work."
Those are two very viable definitions.
Yeah.
I will go with your first one. I will go with one that everybody else hates it and I like it, and I would call that a guilty pleasure. Like, I know everybody else likes it, so I'm going to feel a little guilty about this, but I really like it. But also there's elements of that second one too, because let's look at Mortal Kombat. I love the original Mortal Kombat. It is clearly a guilty pleasure movie. But the thing is, not everybody thinks it's a bad movie. A lot of people think it's a good movie. But all of us who think it's a good movie, somewhere deep down in our hearts, we know this is a terrible film. But we love it. Yeah. Right? Like many ex-girlfriends I've had in my life. You know, it's like, I'm having a great time, but deep down I know you're a terrible person. And no, I'm not speaking. All my exes are great people. Just for the record.
Side note.
All my exes are wonderful, wonderful girls. So I would go with the first one. If I had to pick between the two definitions, I would go with the first one. But realistically, if you're going to say I can mix them up, then I'm going to say it's a mixture of the two. And look, Mortal Kombat's a good example of that. One of my best guilty pleasure movies of all time. Listen, get me and Schnepp talking about this movie and we'll go off. Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice.
What?
Have you not seen Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice?
I feel like that is so random.
Oh my God, Ashley, we are about to introduce you to a whole new world.
Vanilla, and who would have thought it would be Vanilla Ice?
With Vanilla Ice playing basically himself. I mean, he's not playing Vanilla Ice, but he's a character who is nothing but Vanilla Ice, really, when it comes down to it. And he gets his motorcycle and a bunch of his crew breaks down in this little backwards town, and he's got to show the locals, including a bunch of cowboys, how being hip hop is where it's at. It's where the immortal line, "Yep, yep, she likes me," comes from. I mean, it is, who can ever forget that scene where Vanilla Ice is going up to knock on the girl's door, walks up and you expect him to do this. Instead, he walks up strutting his big leather jacket, his sunglasses, and just goes, one fist pound to knock on the door, because that's how Vanilla Ice rolls.
Your impression is just amazing.
It is one of the best guilty pleasure movies ever. We actually once got like 20 friends together, and they were like, what the hell? We said, no, just forget it. Just come over to our house next Thursday night. We're watching this movie. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, because you might not come if I do, but just come and we're going to watch. And they all came over, and we put on Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice. And we all laughed ourselves sick. It is one of the most unintentionally hilarious movies you will ever. Another definition of it's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice. I can't talk enough about this film. Watch it today.
I will watch it right when
we
I
have to have you over to come and watch it, because I need to watch it again. It's been a long time. Dennis, when is the last time you saw Vanilla Ice Cool as Ice?
I haven't seen the whole thing. Only parts
You
of it.
haven't seen the whole thing, Jonathan. What about you?
1991 when it first.
1991. Okay, we're gonna have to have like an AMC movie talk crew night, and we're gonna watch Cool as Ice Vanilla Ice. Best guilty pleasure movie ever.
I can't wait. Taylor Passy writes, thank you so much for picking my question. I love watching your show. I was curious why there was not an Ant-Man sequel announced with all the near future Marvel films. Will we not see another Ant-Man till 2020? Thanks, and bring on that filth.
Well, remember too, when we in the Marvel announcement, for instance, you don't see a Scarlet Witch. You don't see a Black Widow movie in there. But Kevin Feige was very clear. We're going to see a lot of Black Widow.
Yeah.
There's no Hulk movie in there. But Kevin Feige was very clear. We're going to see a lot of Hulk. Just because there's not another Ant movie doesn't mean we're done with Ant-Man. I have a feeling we're going to see Ant-Man again. But also, there's only room for so many movies.
Yeah.
For them to do it, why is there no Ant-Man 2? Well, okay, what do you bump? Like, Marvel is still just one studio, and they're upping their production right now to 3 movies a year. 2 movies a year is kind of insane. Now they're going to do 3. I don't know how they're going to pull this off. But with that crowded of a schedule, what do you bump? Do you not do an Inhumans movie? They want to get Inhumans started. Do you not do Captain America Civil War?
Yeah.
They want to do that. Do you not do Avengers 3 or 4? Do you not do the next Thor movie? It's always been successful. Look, they're already ahead of the game. They're getting Ant-Man introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he probably will be used. But if you're asking, why no Ant-Man 2? It's much like, when we talk about, why not Jennifer Lawrence nominated for Academy Award? Well, because what do you bump to make room for it? What do you bump out of this Marvel Cinematic lineup to make room for Ant-Man 2? You don't need it. So I think they're perfectly fine without Ant-Man 2. And once again, that's not to say we're not going to see a lot of Ant-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think we will. And that's not to say we're not going to see Ant-Man 2 after 2019 or 2020.
Yeah.
But they're so packed right now with so many movies. Something's got to give. They're introducing us to Ant-Man. He's already getting his own standalone film. And you're not going to bump Captain Marvel to make Ant-Man 2. You're not going to bump Black Panther to make Ant-Man 2. We get Ant-Man. And we're going to see more of them, but I think that's why we're not seeing an Ant-Man 2 listed.
So Ant-Man hasn't even been announced in the first place yet. Why would you announce a sequel to it? How do you know?
No, well, Ant-Man's coming out in a few months.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Wait for the first one to come out. Why would you announce a sequel now?
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of people are excited, but
that's true too. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's right. Don't worry about it. It's not like some people ask me, John, there's no Ant-Man sequel. Does that mean Marvel doesn't have faith in this Ant-Man movie? No, they just got a lot of other movies they got to make.
A lot.
And this is another reason. This goes back to my point about why I don't want Spider-Man back in the cinematic universe. Why I don't want the X-Men back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because we're never going to get any movies. It's like, okay, you bring Spider-Man back. Maybe they'll do one Spider-Man movie in the next 4 years. Because they got
crossed.
all these other things they have to do. They got Inhumans and Black Panther and Iron Man and Captain America and Thor and Captain Marvel and at some point a Scarlet Witch movie. Maybe at some point a Quicksilver movie. Maybe a Black Widow movie. All these kinds of things. They're packed.
Yeah.
You know, so we got to understand, hey, you want all these guys on a run roof. That's great. Then you're just going to have to accept the fact that you're going to get one Ant-Man movie every 5 or 6 years. You're probably going to get one Black Panther movie every 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's just part of the consequence of having all these properties under one roof.
Makes sense. Adrian Sandoval writes, hey, AMC, love the show. I have a question about Interstellar. Do you think it can get a sequel?
I say this with all certainty. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way. Number one, I don't think it's going to make the money to demand a sequel. It's going to make good money. Just because it's not doing all that great domestically, it's still doing pretty good internationally. It's going to make money. But I don't think it's going to make the kind of money that puts the fire to the heels of studio executives and says, you have to make a sequel to this. It's not going to make that kind of money. The other thing, though, is if you've seen Interstellar, there's nowhere left to go. That story is done. I mean, unless you did some kind of sequel about how did the world get so bad in the first place, but who's interested in that? The other one is, unless Batman's in it, Christopher Nolan don't do sequels. He didn't do a sequel to Memento. He didn't do a sequel to Insomnia. He didn't do a sequel to Inception. He didn't do a sequel to The Prestige. He didn't do. He's not going to do a sequel to Interstellar. So I honestly, very rarely will I say 100% or 0%. I'm going to say 0% chance we're going to see an Interstellar sequel.
What qualities go into deciding when a movie needs a sequel? Is it just money solely? Usually is the deciding factor the money that the first one brought in.
Absolutely, it's money. And a part of that is how much money did the first one bring in? But then there's also the question, do we think a follow-up could make more money? Because, you know, sometimes you get a movie and it doesn't do great at the box office, but audiences loved it and word of mouth got cooking after the fact, and a studio will go back and say, you know what, I bet if we made another one, it will exceed what the first one did. So let's roll the dice and do a second one. But it always comes down to finances.
Okay.
Because ultimately that's why every movie gets made.
Yeah.
A movie gets made because a studio is a business. They say, can we make a product? Doesn't matter if that product is a laptop, a plastic cup, or a movie. Can we make a product that will go out into the marketplace and consumers will buy this product and make us money? If they will, they'll explore it. If they don't think it can, they won't do it. And that is the way it should be. So, yeah.
All right. Philip C. writes, hey guys at AMC Movie Talk or AMC Mailbag. I want to ask a question about actresses getting a part in a movie. Bottom line is, do they get a role based on sex appeal or by the quality of what makes them a good actress? Amy Rose, imaginary Amy Rose,
Who's not
John
here.
Campia, what are your thoughts on this?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. But look, it's the same. That's the same with male actors as well. Like last time I checked, Tom Cruise, pretty good looking dude. Last I checked, Hugh Jackman, pretty good looking dude. Ryan Gosling, pretty good looking dude. George Clooney, it's immoral how handsome that dude is.
Bradley Cooper, really good looking. Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth. On and on and on and on. All these actors are all great looking dudes with A-list things, sex appeal, stuff like that. Every once in a while, you'll get, may rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's not the traditionally hot guy, but is able to lead some big films and stuff like that. But guys like Philip were an exception. You know, the movie stars, the men, are you're hoping hyper talented, but at the same time, they have to have sex appeal. It's no different for actresses as well. And a lot of times, you know, the movies call for a female character to be sexy. So they want to get that. And even when they don't, they go out and get Julia Roberts for Aaron Brockovich. Even when like the sex appeal of this character isn't the key thing, they still go out and get these actresses. So it is a mixture of both. You got to have great talent. Number one, you have to have great talent. Otherwise, it's pointless. Gal Gadot. But then after that, it's also, remember, they're making a product that they want audiences to want to look at. And so, you know, the fact that I don't look like Hugh Jackman probably hurt my acting career. Not that I ever had an acting career, nor have I ever pursued acting in any sense. But, you know, they got to be good looking guys for people to want to look at. They want now the guys to not just be good looking, they got to be buff because they want men to look at them and think,
I want to be like that. So you got to have these big, buff, good-looking dudes, but they also got to act. Denzel Washington is one of the handsomest dudes in the world, but it doesn't mean anything if he couldn't act.
Yeah.
So, and the same goes for the female actors. I'm sure it's absolutely a mixture of the two.
Can we talk about the poster child for this? Megan Fox.
Oh dear.
She is so hot. She is like my definition of hot. What do you think of her?
She's pure liquid porno.
She is.
Like
those eyebrows, that everything.
I remember the first time I met Megan Fox. It was on the set of the first Transformers movie. And they were shooting the big street battle scene. And then they pulled about 10 of us web, movie journalist guys into this room and said, okay, we're going to bring in a star of our movie, Shia LaBeouf, who none of us had heard of really at the time. And we're going to bring in Megan Fox, also none of us had heard of at the time. And they brought in Megan Fox. And, movie journalists are used to being around stunningly beautiful women. We're used to it. It happens all the time around actresses and stuff like that. Yeah. Megan Fox walked in that room.
Yeah.
And a lot of the air came out of the room because everybody kind of gasped at once, like pretty girl, like sick attractive.
Yeah.
She is. We'll talk about guys like Daniel Day-Lewis who are on another level with his acting. When it comes to hotness, like Megan Fox is on another level. I mean, it's insane, and she can't act.
So yeah, you think she gets cast basically for her looks? I feel bad for her. Everyone makes fun of her for that.
Well, I mean, don't feel too bad for her. She's laughing all the way to the bank. She's a millionaire. Don't worry. Don't you worry about her. But I mean, look, Michael Bay has a history of...
And then she gets replaced by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley.
I know. Also,
Victoria's Secret model.
I know. And who also not a good actress at all. Michael Bay has a history of casting these actresses who look, hey, I got this vision for this shot. We talked before about how Michael Bay is always thinking about shots.
Right.
I got this great idea for a shot. Girl cleaning the seat on a motorcycle and she's leaning over it in tight denim jeans. Yeah. And that's how he goes out and casts his female roles. See, that's the bad part of this. It's when I have no problem with it being a mix of the two, the talent, sex appeal. No problem with that whatsoever. It's when you get some of these people who then get cast because they're nothing but sex appeal. And that's when it hurts. Now, with somebody like Megan Fox, it's not just that because Megan Fox was in the Transformers movies, big international blockbusters. Now she's also a recognizable name. So that brings in a third dynamic, name recognition, right? So Megan Fox isn't just hot. She's also hot and carries with her a lot of name recognition. But I don't think it's a surprise that the next big major film she gets cast in a significant role in is another Michael Bay produced film, which Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which she was also terrible in. I love that movie. And she's terrible. But you know what? I'm going to say this. She's been terrible up to now in everything. But I haven't closed the door on Megan Fox yet. I actually think while she was terrible in the Turtles, I think it's the best performance we've actually ever seen out of her. She was still terrible. But the important thing is I think there was improvement. And the longer she's in the business, she's getting better. So I'm not willing to close the door on Megan Fox just yet.
Neither am I.
I am not willing to say she'll never be good. You know why? Because the last movie I saw her in, she was a little bit better than the movie I saw her in before that. And that means she's getting a little bit better. Now maybe her improvement stops, or maybe she keeps getting better, and at some point she'll actually become a serviceable actress in the business. I'm not willing to discount that possibility yet. But up till now, she's been pretty awful. So let's just call it what it is.
Fingers crossed, Megan Fox.
What's next?
Ann Deal writes, I recently watched Interstellar, and although I am not a Nolan fanboy, I found it to be one of my favorite cinematic experiences. This made me surprised to see that a movie that I love so much had got such mixed reviews. Normally people discuss about how Nolan's filmography is perfect. Have Interstellar's mixed reviews changed this?
Well, it all depends on your point of view. Look, I tweeted when I came out of Interstellar, just saw Interstellar, underwhelmed. And I was underwhelmed, but that's because my expectations were so high. And I do not... This is a very divisive movie. People seem to either love or hate this, and I am neither. Like, I liked the movie. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good movie. But it didn't come anywhere near my expectations, like, at all. And I thought there were a number of legitimate flaws in the film that, frankly, I think some people who are real big defenders of Interstellar are just being ostriches and sticking their heads in the sand. and just saying, no, I'm not going to listen to any criticism about a Christopher Nolan film, blah, 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 blah. Like, there are those people out there. At the same time, I think there's some unfair criticism because I think there are some people out there that are just looking for an opportunity to bash on a Christopher Nolan film. I think Interstellar was a good movie, but not great. So let's ask, what's the definition of a perfect filmography? Is it that every film they do is a 10? Well, that's ridiculous. If that's the case, Christopher Nolan's never had a perfect filmography. But if we're going to define a perfect filmography as all the films they've done have been good, then I'm going to contend that Christopher Nolan is still carrying a perfect record. And a lot of people ask me, hey, is Interstellar the worst Christopher Nolan film? I don't think so. I think it's better than The Dark Knight Rises. I think The Dark Knight Rises was his worst film. And even that is a film that I will stand up and say is good.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. I've seen it. I've seen it twice. It gets more bothersome to me the more I see it, so I don't think I'll watch it anymore. But it was still a movie I enjoyed, and I think it's a good movie. And I think that even though I think it's Christopher Nolan's worst film, I think it still holds his record of every film Christopher Nolan's put out has been good. And I don't think Interstellar changes that. Like, listen, I hear the criticism that a lot of people weigh against the movie, and I get it. I have criticisms about the film myself. Absolutely. But I also think sometimes the criticism gets blown out of proportion a little bit. Like, I ended up I think I gave it a 7.5 in our review. What did you end up giving it, Dennis?
8. Everyone else gave it 7.5.
Yeah, so we had a couple of 7.5s. You gave it an 8. And I stand by that. I stand by the 7.5. I think it's a good film. So for me personally, while I think it is his second weakest film, I still thought it was good. So for me, the perfect record's still intact. For me.
Do you think that for some people, including yourself, that maybe the hype created this huge expectation, you were kind of let down by it, and which made you view it a little bit?
Yes, but here's the but. You can't just say that it's, because you had high expectations, that's why, guess what? My expectations weren't one bit lower for Inception.
Okay.
I had just as high expectations for Inception. And I didn't come out let down by it.
Okay.
Even though my expectations were just as high. So yeah, there was a lot of hype in this movie, absolutely. And I think if my expectations weren't so high, maybe I don't get on Twitter and say I'm underwhelmed by it. But the problems were still there. Enough to make me go, okay, this was a very good movie, not a great movie. Okay. And certainly not one that lived up to the hype.
Alrighty.
All right.
Radari O'Haro writes, for a movie to be good, does it need to be based on something else, or can it be original and still be awesome? A lot of movies that have been successful have been based on something else. Comic books, The Hunger Games, and other teenage books. Movies like Tetris and Barbie will likely simply get attention because people know them for other products. But are there movies that are more original that also holds ground?
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. I mean, absolutely, yes. I mean, just run down, do this. Do a Google search for Academy Awards Best Original Screenplay. There's an entire category for Best Original Screenplay, right? And that's all movies that are from scratch. Django Unchained, Her, Moonrise Kingdom, Bridesmaids, Inceptions, Interstellar, King's Speech, Up, American Hustle, and Glorious Bastards. That's all just the last couple of years. This is the last couple of years. So yes, absolutely, you can be big and successful and be great and awesome with original material.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, this brings up an interesting point and argument that I get in with people a lot. Some people say, Hollywood's not original anymore and blah because of this and this and this. And I think that's asinine. I think it's absolutely asinine. Because whether or not a movie is like Django Unchained, in which, you have Quentin Tarantino sit down at his typewriter and start writing out a story that he makes into a movie, or whether you make a movie like Hunger Games, in which case, I can't remember the name of the author of Hunger Games, but the woman who wrote the Hunger Games at some point sat down and started typing out a story that somebody then takes and makes into a movie. Yeah. It all starts in the same place. It starts with a writer sitting down at a keyboard and writing out a story. That's where it all starts. Now, whether that story that person starts to write is originally meant to be in a novel, or whether it's meant to be a screenplay or a teleplay or something like that, that's irrelevant. It all comes from the same place. A writer sitting down at a keyboard and typing out Once Upon a Time. I mean, not those words, but that's how every movie starts. Whether the original conception was that of a screenplay, or whether the original conception was that of a novel, or whether the original concept was that for a comic book. It all starts with a writer sitting down to make a story, and then ultimately that story ending up on the big screen. It's all the same thing. A lot of people will argue with me and say it's not. It is. It's about a writer coming up with a good story. And then a producer saying, I want to take that story and turn it into a movie. Mm-hmm. And whether the producer is looking at a screenplay that was written as a screenplay, or whether that producer is looking at a novel that was written as a novel, or whether that producer is looking at a television show that somebody had to sit down and start writing out and make into a television show, it all comes from the same place, a writer creating a story. So to me, it's a ridiculous argument that just doesn't hold any water for me.
Don't you think it's smart, though, to base it on something? You're starting with an audience, you know? People already like a book. People already like this, so they're going to come see it.
From a marketing point of view, yes. If it's a good thing that's to start off with. Yeah. I mean, I think they're making a Monopoly movie. Ooh. That's ridiculous. They made Battleship. Oh my God, that was a terrible idea.
Oh my gosh, Clue would be a great
Clue?
movie.
Like they did make a Clue movie.
Did?
Yes, they did. There is a Clue movie. Actually, Dennis dressed up for Halloween as a Clue character.
Oh, that's right.
That's Professor Plum, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, yes, if you can come up with a property and then match a script to it that has name recognition, whatever, then from a marketing point of view, that makes perfect sense. And I'm totally good with that. I'm totally fine with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But, you know, sometimes you just get a great idea for a movie that you know, you don't base on another property or whatever, and you run with that too. I'm fine with either. As long as the final product is a good movie. Now, we had this discussion before, you and I, about how, you know, I don't care if a comic book movie comes from Marvel. I don't care if it comes from DC. I don't care if it comes from Sony or Fox or whatever. Yeah. All I want is a good comic book movie. Same can be said about just movies in general. I don't care that Gone Girl was based on a novel. Mm-hmm. Makes no difference to me if it was based on a novel or if the lady, instead of writing it out as a novel, instead wrote it as a screenplay. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't matter to me. All that matters is it a good movie? And whether it's good or not will have nothing to do whether it was based on something else or not.
Got it.
Well, I think that's it, right?
That's it.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us for this installment of AMC Mailbag. Thanks so much for joining us today. Listen, don't forget, lots of great movies playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this show, look in the description of this video, and you'll find a link to our podcast feed so you can listen to us on the way to work or on your commute or anything that you do. And also, click the thumbs up button on this video and make sure you subscribe and tell everybody else you know to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. So I want to thank, first of all, our lovely host joining me today, of course, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you online?
Twitter, Instagram, at Ashley Mova. Bye, guys.
And you guys can find me on all the various social media channels at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. My name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.